Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel Hewitt, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie Nagilendran. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, Mash. More importantly, how are you doing, Mash, man? We've been doing a lot of content last few days. I think the last 4 or 5 days, we've dropped about 3 videos on the channel, totaling over 30,000 views. If you haven't already, make sure you tune into Monday Nights with Machel, the live call-in show. I think yesterday you had Josh De Silva in the comments, Mash. And if you ever want to get an insight into Caribbean cricket, you need to tune into that calling show. All sorts of opinions, cuss-outs, everything there. So every Monday night with Mash. And as I said, we've been dropping a lot of content regarding the T20 World Cup. But today's a slightly different episode because today Cricket West Indies have announced a 15-man squad who will be touring England in July for a 3-test series. So, Mash, as always, we're here early to dissect the squad, look at any controversial selections and chop it up about the squad.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I mean, getting straight into it, let me just bring the squad up on the screen. First things first. So the squad has been named. Craig Brathwaite, captain. Alzarri Joseph, vice-captain. Alec Athanaze, Joshua De Silva, Jason Holder, Kavem Hodge, Tevin Imlach, Shamar Joseph, Mikhail Louis, Zachary McCaskey, Kirk McKenzie, Gudakesh Moti, Kimar Roach, Jaden Seals, Kevin Sinclair. Now, there's obviously, Santokie, lots and lots of talking points. And it feels weird because to me, Santokie, it's weird that they've dropped this right at the beginning of a World Cup. No one's really spoken about that. No. They had to obviously drop it at some point because obviously the test tour essentially starts about 6 days after the World Cup final or 7 days after the World Cup final. But off the back of West Indies having a less than impressive win against Papua New Guinea, I'm not sure I would have picked this point to drop the test squad. I would have waited for us to have a good win first and then drop the test squad and just build a bigger vibes and say, and here's the test squad as well.
Maybe they were sick of our cuss-out videos. They were like, you know what, let's get these guys off track. Let's get them talking about something else, man. Test side. But yeah, it's a strange one. A Tuesday, about 5 weeks before the first test to drop the squad. But I guess it is what it is. Generally, Mash, though, there's not been massive changes. It's quite a conservative selection. Obviously, 2 players from the Australia tour, Tagenarine Chanderpaul and Justin Greaves, don't make this squad. Jason Holder and Mikhail Louis come into the squad. But overall,
Akeem Jordan as well. He was on that Australia tour.
Oh, Akeem Jordan as well. Yeah,
he's been replaced by Jaden Seals, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I believe Isaiah Joseph is travelling as a reserve to kind of get practice as well. Isaiah Thorne, yeah, is travelling as well. In addition, but he's not in the squad, but he'll be travelling with the side. But Mash, I know because beforehand we were talking about, Brandon King potentially coming in, the kind of changes is, but generally you'd say it's quite I wouldn't say predictable, but if you had to pick the sort of changes in the squad, we would have guessed that they would have made these changes. We've done previous videos talking about Chanderpaul's place at threat, obviously with Jason Holder returning, that led to question marks over Justin Greaves. So overall, Mash, would you agree that it's not a shocking squad that they've kind of picked?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. As in it's not a shock, right? There's, I mean, in the Discord group earlier today when the squad dropped, there was a lot of back and forth. There's probably still back and forth going on in the Discord group about it. I'm sure that on various fans forums and within the media, everyone's going to make a big deal about this squad. But Santokie, as far as I'm concerned, credit due when it's due. This is the squad that should have gone to England. We can get onto Tage in a minute, but even Tage being dropped, I understand it. Whether I personally agree or not is irrelevant. I get it. There is a justification behind it. So if you look at those 3 names that you've called, Akeem Jordan loses his place for Jaden Seals. Jaden Seals is tearing up county championship cricket in England. Makes sense, right? Top wicket taker in Div 2, makes sense. Graves dropped Jason Holder back. Makes sense. Jason Holder, former Test captain, toured England multiple times before, played a couple matches in West Indies Championship, took some wickets, came over here, played for Worcestershire, scored 100, took some. Just makes sense. You go back for the experience of Jason Holder, which leads us, Santokie, where we should probably start then with the key talking point. You and I had done several videos in the build-up to this squad announcement. And I think our squad that we chose was pretty much this squad.
Yeah.
We said that the only talking point we thought there would be who's going to go as the openers. We always said that we expected Machel Louis to go. Whether we agreed with it or not, we expected he'd get in as one of the three. Yeah. And we thought at the time, when we did the video about a month ago, it's probably going to come down to Tage or Zachary McCaskey as to who gets to go to England. I'm going to start actually, Santokie, and then I'll let you come in. I don't mind Tage getting dropped if he's been rung and given a clear rationale and a clear kind of process which says, Tage, we're dropping you for now for this specific reason. We want you to go back into domestic cricket and do the following. Or maybe Santokie, they'll say to him, or should have said to him, we'll pick you for the 18 tour when South Africa come in the summer. We'll pick you for that. We need to see you just regain what made you get into the Test team in the first place. My only question mark is this, Santokie. What did Zachary McCaskey do in the domestic championship that made him stand out above Tage Chanderpaul? I get why Tage hasn't been picked, but what did McCaskey do? Because I'll go look for the numbers in a second, but I swear he didn't average significantly above Tage, if at all. It was probably like 0.02 or something. He scored his first ever century in his career, I think, in this recent championship. So he scored 1 century. I think Tage scored 1 century. Tage was already the incumbent. So the only question mark I've got, and I'm not saying that McCaskey shouldn't have been picked, I'm just saying I didn't see weight of runs or strength of performance to justify McCaskey keeping his place as well. But maybe it just is what it is.
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, congratulations to Machel Louis. First class season, he's played 7 matches, he's got the big call up. Most likely, at this stage, you'd imagine he's going to play that first test with Craig Brathwaite. Obviously, we don't know, but he's got a 1 in 2 chance, but a very good chance he's more likely to start. He'll be the first St. Kittian, I think, to represent West Indies if he does get the cap. So congratulations to him. But the big talking point isn't Machel Louis, because as we said, based on the numbers, what did he get? He got in the first class season 682 runs at an average of 48. Obviously, he's new to first class cricket. It's his first season, but when you put up those numbers, there's at least a justification for it. Now, if we're talking about Tage and McCaskey, so McCaskey hit 353 runs, averaged 29. He played 14 innings and he had a high score of 101 this season. Tage hit 323 runs, so 30 runs less, but he played 2 less innings because the match against Trinidad that Guyana played was washed out. Also averaged 29 and also, weirdly enough, had a high score of 101. The only difference is there between the numbers is McCaskey had 2 half-century scores, Tage only had 1. But generally, it's pretty identical, their numbers. So this begs the question then. Obviously, you're saying, Mash, and I agree, Tage didn't do enough in the first class season as you'd expect him to do as an experience, as not a massively experienced, but someone who's played Test cricket. So we can understand the drop. However, if you're looking at McCaskey, what has McCaskey done significantly better to earn his place ahead of Tage? And if you're basing it on experience, McCaskey hasn't got that Test experience. So it's a big gamble from Cricket West Indies to go with McCaskey over Tage. And I've said it on previous videos, I would have gone with Tage as, even if Machel Louis is going to start these matches, Tage as the backup. Because, all right, let's say the first 2 tests, Machel Louis doesn't do well, and they're looking for alternatives. You've got McCaskey who hasn't got experience playing Test cricket, and so you're just going to throw him in. At least Tage has that experience. And when the numbers are so similar, identical, what is the defining factor? What are you basing it on? The picks? I would have gone with experience, someone who's got international Test experience in Tage and Chanderpaul. So it's a big call from Cricket West Indies. Also, not a massive thing, but also McCaskey and Machel Louis are both right-handers, along with Craig, right-hand batters. At least Tage is left-handers, so that offers something different as well. So I personally would have gone with Tage, but they've gone with McCaskey. You can't argue too hard against it because at the end of the day, he did match Tage in terms of the first class season. He travelled to Australia as a backup opener, so he's always kind of been around the setup this year, Test cricket setup. But for me personally, Mash, I would have gone with Tage. And also, it's interesting as well because Solizano was up there as well, 330 runs. He averaged 30, so he averaged more than McCaskey and Tagenarine Chanderpaul. He's a left-hand batter as well. So it's interesting. It'd be interesting to know the thought process as to why Solizano might not have necessarily got a pick. He's someone previously, he got called up for that Test series in Sri Lanka, so he's someone that they've obviously believed in the past could stand up to international cricket. So there's a lot of questions, but at the end of the day, Mash, I just think it's a big, big gamble. It could pay off, but it's a big gamble to go with Machel Louis and Zachary McCaskey as two of your three openers for this tour.
Yeah, the like you say, and we wish Bob would be like you. And I'm glad you said it. First things first, as you said. First things first. Machel Louis, his first 7 matches, first-class matches of his career, is enough to. His first 7 matches of his first-class career was enough to get him straight into the West Indies team. I would assume that the West Indies are essentially. I would assume they're essentially banking on that he's just in form, and because he's in form, it makes sense. Because he's in form, it makes sense that they essentially go with the guy in form. Fine. McCaskey, I think it's no more complex, Santokie, than they've just said, you've been in the background waiting for your chance. Yeah. It's your turn now. I don't think it's anything more complex than that. I think they know deep down that he didn't do enough to justify necessarily getting ahead of Tage, but it's just his turn now. I will be very intrigued to see who gets the nod with Craig. But this is what I'm going to read out to you, Santokie. Assuming this is our top 6 against England in the first test at Lord's, it may not be this, but let's just assume this is a top 6, particularly because Justin Graves is gone and Jason Holder's back. Let's assume this is a top 6. Craig. Actually, let's go Machel Louis, just for argument's sake. Craig, Machel Louis, Kurt McKenzie, Alec Athanaze, Kavem Hodge, and let's just argue to say that Kevin Sinclair is going to bat number 6. Let's just say argument's sake, right? Take Craig out, and this is the total number of test matches these players have between them. 8. None of them, McCaskey, Louis, McKenzie, Athanaze, Hodge, and Sinclair, none of them will have ever played in England before. So 5 of our top 6, or possible likely top 6, are not only coming to England for their first time ever, they also have a total of 8 test matches between them. And obviously there's going to be uncles now who get into the chat and say, well, you know, that didn't stop them in Australia and and you've got to learn on the job and We know, Santokie, what happens in England. The ball moves early doors. If you've never played in England before, it's a country where you have to get used to the movement, particularly if you've got no past experience of touring there. Also, Santokie, Louis is what, 22 or 23? Yeah. McKenzie is 22 or 21. I can't remember. Athanaze is 24 or 25. Sinclair is only 25 himself. Where do you stand on not taking anybody experienced on a tour to England? I know everyone's going to talk about the Australia premium, but there is no one with any experience whatsoever in that top 6 beyond Craig.
Yeah, I guess it's a tricky one because I can see the counter argument in terms of this side, these young guys aren't burdened necessarily with having taken licks consistently, as in they've just come off the Gabba. They have that optimism, and sometimes that could help. But on the flip side, generally, the Gabba was a miracle. We've called it the miracle at the Gabba. Shamar Joseph done a once-in-a-lifetime performance. Generally, with sports, team sports, you need some sort of experience in the spine to kind of give you that push to kind of perform. However, you could argue, Mash, if we're looking at top 6 experience in Test cricket, What were the options we could have taken? Jermaine Blackwood.
That's a good. No, do you know what? That's a good counterpoint.
I think ideally, if you asked Haynes or Andre Coley, they would have loved to take an experience. But when our experienced players haven't been performing, we've essentially thrown ourselves into a position where the red ball cricketers we do have, who are putting up numbers, are young guys who don't have much experience. So they've taken a big gamble again by going with a relatively inexperienced side, young players. However, they're probably looking at it and thinking, if we tried and tested a few players in a cycle, experienced players, and they haven't performed, we might as well just start fresh with these guys.
Now, the squad, like I say, because I was about to call a name for you and say this player's experienced. In fact, I'll call the name.
Go on.
So, Casey Carty has a West Indies central contract. He played 12 innings in the West Indies Championship, scored 496 runs at 41 apiece, 105 50s. Everyone's always cussed and said Carty looks more suited to red ball cricket than he does to white ball cricket. Now, I'm not saying Carty should have gone. That's not really my point, because I don't think there's any space for him to go. Because this is a problem, Santokie. You say it's a problem, but maybe it's a blessing. Once you make the decision that you're rewarding everybody who went to Australia, there actually isn't any space for anybody to come in. So I guess let me flip it on you, Santokie. Let me flip this argument on you. Say we go to England. Like, obviously, again, I'm always mindful, Santokie, that people don't listen properly to the show and they say that we're negative and da-da-da-da-da. But let's just say, argument's sake, Santokie, we come to England and it doesn't go well. Let me just use that phrase. It doesn't go well. How long does the Australia premium last for? I think is the question I'm asking you here. So do you still reward Mackenzie and Athanaze and Hodge because they were in Australia? Do you see what I mean? How long does that premium last? And then also on the flip side of that question, how much damage will it do to the youth men if they don't do well in England? And then you say, well, boy, some of you didn't really do well in Australia and now you've not done well in England. Australia premiums run out, you're dropped. But you had to think about Santokie. Remember, our last test series have been India at home, Australia away, and now England away. So Mackenzie and Athanaze, their experience of test match cricket has been India followed by Australia, followed by England. And say they don't succeed, what do you do, Santokie, from a developmental perspective? Do you just keep believing in them?
Yeah, I don't think you have a choice at this point. It's an interesting question because, as you said, England's a tough place away to go. Generally, we've taken licks this millennium in every test series we played. So does not performing in the England series counter that Australia premium? How far do they stretch it? Obviously, we've got South Africa not long after that, and there's an A-team tour, so they might maybe put players in the A-team tour to try and get back that experience and kind of get that match performance. Or they could just say, listen, you played 2 away series, Australia and England. We know it's tough, like an Athanaze or Mackenzie. We'll give you a home one. We got the 2 tests against South Africa, 2 tests against Bangladesh end of the year. We'll give you that. And then if you're not performing there, we can say we've given you home and away. Obviously, in West Indies cricket, common sense sometimes isn't so common, so that might not necessarily happen. We might see a whole splurge of players dropped after the England series. But ideally, you'd want to see them given a run because these are the long-term prospects for West Indies cricket. And again, Mashto, but even going back to the experience, even a Casey Carty, I know he's played a lot of first-class games, I think 48. He hasn't played Test cricket, so throwing him in there as well. If you're looking at like actual Test match experienced players, who's recently played Test cricket that's been experienced in that regard? Raymond Reefar, Jermaine Blackwood, there's not really Roston Chase, we don't really have many options. So again, it's that lack of quality of more experienced players, which has essentially meant for this series, we're essentially relying on Brathwaite, Holder and Roach as the experienced guys to kind of carry this young side.
You might as well throw Josh De Silva in there. He's only 25. He's only 25, but you might as well just dash him in there as well because now he's one of the experienced ones. Listen, Santokie, let's move on. Let me put it back up on the screen just for a sec. Let's move on to the other talk. There is another talking point in there. I'm sure people have got in the comments and said, this person, cool, whatever. Here's the other talking point. Jason Holder, Santokie. But Jason Holder's only a talking point for me I think he was always going to be in this squad. I don't think that was ever up for debate. I'm not even willing to get into a conversation about why he's in the squad. Of course, he should have been in the squad, and you and I said that ages ago. So let's not debate that. Instead, Santokie, let's debate this: Jason Holder, Kemar Roach, Jaden Seals, Alzari Joseph, Shamar Joseph. That's 5 seamers of various different skill sets and ability. And sorry, I should throw in Gudakesh Multi. So that's 6 bowlers, sorry, Santokie. Never mind Kevin Sinclair for now. 6 cannot go into 4 or 5, Santokie. How do you see them configuring this? Because there's an argument to say that Gudakesh Multi, if I take this off, there's an argument to say that Gudakesh Multi is currently our best all-format player, right? But there's a chance he doesn't play.
Yeah,
because
I don't think Moti will play. Yeah,
right, okay, cool. So forget Multi then. We rule Multi out. Then you still have the problem of fitting 5 seamers into possibly what is 4 positions, right? Now, I've long said on previous videos with you, Santokie, that I suspect that they may go Kevin Sinclair at 6, Josh at 7, then you have 8, 9, 10, 11, right? Maybe Sinclair and Holder are fine for the same position. I don't know. Now, let's just say, argument's sake, they go Holder at 8. All of a sudden, that means you have Jaden Seals, Kemar Roach, Alzari Joseph, Shamar Joseph fighting for the last 3 seam positions. Do you get where I'm coming from, Santokie?
Yeah, but I don't think Alzari will play the first test.
Right, so that's my thing. I don't think Alzari's playing either, but I was intrigued to see. Everyone's going to say to us now, because let me put it back on the screen again. Look, next to Alzari Joseph, it says vice captain Santokie. Does it matter, yes or no?
No, I don't think it matters. I think if Alzari's playing the World Cup he's playing the World Cup, if we put a run together, let's say we get to the semi-finals, you're telling me he's going to play that and then within a week going to go and play the test against England. I don't think they're going to do that. Obviously, Shamar Joseph's with the World Cup squad, but we haven't seen him play. We don't know how much he'll figure in that. So I think in terms of a workload, they'll probably rotate and have Alzari Joseph miss that first test to get acclimatized to England and then rotate him potentially with a Kemar Roach in the second test, for instance. I think we'll see rotation because if you've got that wealth of options, you might as well utilize it. So I think the first test we'll see. I don't think Moti will play at Lords. I think they'll rely on Kevin Sinclair because generally Lords won't have that much spin. So I think they'll go with Holder, Shamar Joseph, Jaden Seals and Roach as the 4 seamers for that first test.
So people are going to cuss once. Thank God you said it. People are going to cuss. But I think Santokie, Kemar Roach and Jaden Seals, they're definitely playing no matter what. They've been over here for pretty much the first half of the county championship season. There's no way West Indies don't start with them. They're the freshest bowlers we've got. And technically the most adaptable to the conditions. So, because people will say to us, Santokie, Kemar Roach shouldn't start, but of course he's going to start.
Of course he's going to start. Yeah, Kemar Roach is still a gun bowler, and we've seen him do it. Like Surrey's an elite club, the best county side in England.
Surrey would beat West Indies.
Yeah, Surrey's side is probably, if you're looking at first-class cricket sides, club sides, they're probably the best in the world, strongest side in the world. And in fact, Roach has been taking wickets for them, performing well for them, consistently called upon by them. And Jaden Seals, 24 wickets, leading wicket taker in Division 2 in the county cricket. They're 2 guaranteed to play that. You'd be foolish to not have them start that first test at Lords. And also they'll have a break as well in between because the Red Bull season now is on a break. So they'll have a nice break as well to kind of rest up. So they'll be ready for that first test. Holder as well. We've seen Holder's a strange one because Mash, if you looked about 6-7 months ago, he skipped Super 50 to play in the Rajasthan Royals camp in India, talked about how, beneficial the IPL was and how he's looking forward to playing IPL the next year. Missed that Australia tour to focus on T20 cricket. So it kind of looked like Holder was moving away from Red Bull cricket. And then randomly, he didn't get an IPL deal, ended up playing for Worcestershire, injured and missed the T20 World Cup. So we've come to a situation where suddenly Holder, he's had a run of Red Bull games. His last 7 games have been Red Bull games. He played 2 for Barbados, 5 for Worcestershire. So Jason Holder's in the format now. He's got that recent experience. He's ready to play Test cricket again. So Jason Holder's almost a positive surprise because we always knew he'd come back into the side. But we assumed, he'd fit himself in based on previous credentials, having played T20 cricket for most of this year. But he's actually coming off a run of red ball cricket. So Jason Holder's going to be very effective in England as well, I think. And obviously, unfortunately, having missed the World Cup through injury, but that will also give him some rest time and some recovery times to be fresh for that England series. So Jason Holder's going to be a threat as well, just because of the different dynamic his year's sort of taken from what was planned.
Lastly, before we wrap, I mean, again, I don't think it's a major talking point, but we'll talk about it all the same. Tevin Imlach is there in the first instance as a backup to Josh De Silva, should Josh De Silva pick up an injury. Josh De Silva is, of course, the incumbent wicketkeeper. Imlach went to Australia as the backup wicketkeeper. Now, Imlach in the West Indies Championship he only played 5 matches. I think he had a hand injury because he didn't really keep wicket for Guyana in the championship, and he was captain at points as well. 485 runs in 5 matches, at an average of 54 with 200s and 350s. Now, it might seem silly what I'm about to say, Santokie, but here's a scenario I'm going to paint to you. Say we get to the 3rd test, we're already down bad, we've lost 2-0, and the whole of the top order has struggled at Lords, and they struggle at Trent Bridge. Would you bring in Tevin Imlach as a straight batter? Do you think Imlach should be looking at the West Indies setup and thinking, wait a minute, yeah, I'm Josh De Silva's backup, but I'm good enough to just get in this team as a batter out and at first within my own right as well?
Yeah, I think he's put the numbers up. We've seen what he can do with the bat. He's not been consistent over the years, but he certainly, for me, in Test series, by the time, if you've been taking licks, by the time you get to the final test, we've seen it across all sides. There's no rules. I think it was 2012. We threw in Sunil Narayan fresh from the IPL and said, "Listen, make your debut in the 3rd test. Like, just bowl at Edgbaston. It's raining, but just try and do something." So I think the 3rd test, there's no logic goes out the window as well. So I can imagine Tevin Imlach has the credentials to come in as a batter. I know a lot of people argue that he should be the wicketkeeper. As you said, he had a wrist or hand injury, so he didn't keep in the first class season. So I don't think he should be coming in as well. I don't think Josh De Silva has performed badly enough to be dropped from the side. We saw what he did with the bat in Australia. His wicket keeping was solid. So I think Josh De Silva, for me, without a doubt, is the incumbent at the moment. So Tevin Imlach's there. But as you said, he's put up impressive numbers with the bat in the first class season. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that we could see him come in. If there's a scenario where the 3rd test we're looking for someone who might be able to put some runs up, they just call Tevin Imlach as a batter to add to that top 6.
Most definitely. So, final thing then, and then we wrap the show. Before that first test at Lords, trying to find my diary, I don't know what I've done with it. Before the first test match at Lords, we have that warm-up game in Beckenham against the County Cricket Select 11. 3-day game now. Do you think that the only thing we're really looking at in that game, it's a shame it's not a 4-day game anymore, so it loses some of its luster and importance in terms of playing it as a proper encounter. But do you think that game is ultimately there to make them work out who's going to open with Craig, and that everything else is relatively already set in stone?
Yeah, I think they've already. I personally would say they probably decided Louis to go as the opener. So it wouldn't surprise, because it's a 3-day game. I don't think that you can even use that now as a test, really. I think they'll go. You'll see Brathwaite and Louis come out back together. Maybe McCaskey will come out at 3 just to get him some practice out in the open as well. But the thing is, once it's a 3-day game and loses first class status, you can have as many batters as you want come on, you can retire out, that kind of thing. So for me, I don't think they'll use that as a test anymore. They'll probably go more by I know they're basing themselves at Tonbridge School for the week before, so they'll probably use the net sessions and performances there more as a gauge of who should be playing and who's in form. I think that that 3-day game is more just going to be a run out, just to get something, just get bat on ball for the openers. I think
by that game they've already made the decision as what they want to go with.
It wouldn't surprise me if they've already made their mind up now, in terms of Louis starting. But yeah, I think by the warm-up game they would have, and we'll see Louis and Brathwaite come out to open in that warm-up game.
Actually, you made mention. I keep saying we're done, but I just remembered you made mention of it at the start. Where is it? So Isaiah Thorne is travelling as a developmental player. Apparently, he's not going to Ireland, so he won't go to Ireland on that academy tour. Instead, he'll come over with the test team. I need to clarify that, but that's what I've been told. Maybe he'll go for some of the island tour. Do you think Thorne took 31 wickets, an average of 16 for Harpy Eagles? I've been calling for them to do things like this for a while, Santokie, where you just take some promising players, whether it be like Kevlon Anderson, you just take them as net players because there's nothing to lose. Do you think that's the right thing to do with Isaiah Thorne, or do you think it's a bit too early to be exposing him like this?
No, I think it's never too early. I think if you got a player with raw talent, we've seen it with Thorne, I think it's not gonna be detrimental for you. You're gonna see the cream of the crop play. And I think it will be beneficial to be on that tour. We kind of saw it. Do you remember in the COVID
Seals
tour?
did it in New Zealand, didn't he?
Seals did it in New Zealand. Keon Harding was in the England tour. And remember Stuart Broad was giving him tips and stuff like that. So I think it's to be around the setup's always going to be priceless for a youngster. So I think it's going to be beneficial for Thorne, and I do think it's something we should see on tours. Have a young developmental player come in, see how it works at senior level, what the setup's like, be around the changing room, all the different dynamics that go into becoming a Test cricketer, and then you also plant the seed in their mind, like this is what you need to be. This is the level you need to be at if you want to be a Test cricketer. So from early, they can kind of use that as a realistic ambition. So I think it's a good initiative to bring a youngster or two onto each tour.
Most definitely. Listen, people, we've given you half an hour there. We're just giving you some talking points. Santokie and I, no preparation as usual. Just talked it out live and direct. We've given you some talking points there. Get at us in the comments below. What do you think of the Test match squad? Neither myself or Santokie really think it's that much of a dramatic squad. Well done, Desi. Good job, Desi. Like it's.
Wait, this might be the final. This might be the final act, isn't it?
It's like Desi's closing contribution to West Indies cricket. But good job, Desi and Andre Coley, and I suppose Craig Brathwaite's had a bit of say as well in terms of constructing this squad. It's literally what it could be or what it possibly should be, give or take some discussions about Tage. But get us in the comments below. Let us know what you think. CCP content will keep coming. I think Santokie and I are doing a video ahead of the Uganda game, so look out for some more content coming later this week. Of course, there's still the very, very busy World Cup that's going on, so we can't lose sight of that. But last words to you, Santokie.
Yeah, as you said, a lot of content coming up. We've got Uganda Saturday night in the Caribbean, Sunday 1:30 a.m. for us based in the UK. You've got West Indies, the senior women's teams arrived in Sri Lanka ahead of their series. We've got, as you alluded to, there's the emerging players against Ireland. I think it starts in 10 days or so, the beginning of that tour. And then also we're going to try and get out on Friday. You know, Surrey are playing Sussex. If Jaden Seals is there, we're going to try and pop over to the Oval, see if we can get a quick interview reaction about making the Test squad with Jaden Seals. So stay tuned for a lot of content this month and July and August as well, because Mash is doing his big trip to Trinidad as well in August. So there's a hot run after the lull of the IPL. There's a hot run of CCP content. So keep your ears peeled out for that, and we'll see you very soon with Uganda World Cup preview video in the coming days. So thank you as always. Like, share, subscribe, spread the word. Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We continue to grow and move. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Yes, people. And just as we go, remember www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. If you'd like to support, head there for as little as $1, £1, £1 yen, £1, whatever your currency is. That's what keeps the movement and the wave going. As Santokie says, see you soon. Content soon come.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.